Opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
This is the best solution for everybody.
Tonight on Politics Now, a settlement between MGM and victims of the 1 October shooting on the Strip, while the victims' attorneys are praising MGM. Plus,
I'm the only guy that's ever beaten the NRA nationally, and I beat him twice.
the top presidential candidates lay out their plans to tackle gun violence at a forum in Las Vegas this week, and
which would be highly unusual for him because he's usually extremely energetic and so forth.
presidential candidate Bernie Sanders is rushed to a Las Vegas hospital for a heart procedure, how he's doing and when he's getting back on the trail.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now with Steve Sebelius.
This week marked 2 years since the deadliest mass shooting in modern American history. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Sebelius. Las Vegas held a sunrise remembrance ceremony at the Clark County Government Center and a ceremony at the Healing Garden where the names of all 58 people killed were read out loud. During the morning ceremony, Metro Sheriff Joe Lombardo and Governor Steve Sisolak spoke tearfully about how the community has cared for each other since that very dark day.
We are a city of neighbors that look out for each other, that have each other's backs, that have an immense pride in the place that we call home. That we are, and we have always been, Vegas strong.
For each and every one of us to take the opportunity, especially since there are some very special people here in this audience today, to just take a moment of your day, turn around, shake their hand, give them a hug, and say, I appreciate you.
A massive settlement deal has been reached between MGM Resorts and the victims of the 1 October shooting. As Orko Manor reports, MGM Resorts has agreed to pay up to $800 million in this case.
After the 1 October shooting, those who were injured and relatives of the victims filed lawsuits accusing MGM Resorts International of negligence for allowing the shooter to stockpile weapons and have thousands of rounds of ammunition inside his hotel room here at the Mandalay Bay, which is owned by MGM. The company tried to block those victims from getting any money through legal action of their own, but now after 8 months of mediation, a settlement is reached. MGM Resorts International has agreed to pay between $735 and $800 million, depending on the number of claimants, to settle lawsuits from victims of the 1 October mass shooting. The company has $751 million in insurance coverage that can be used to help cover the cost. Plaintiff's attorney Robert Eglett, who represents around 2,500 of the 4,400 potential claimants, says this will end all pending litigation against MGM. Eglett says an independent claims administrator will now be put in charge of dividing the funds to each of the victims' families and survivors named in the settlement. It's unclear how much money each person will get. Eglett tells me this is a fair settlement, but he wishes he could do more.
It would be nice if we could, it'd be really nice if we could bring back loved ones when we settle a case, or, make injuries go away, but we can't do that. The only system we have is compensating people with money, and that's the best we can do.
In a statement, MGM Resorts CEO Jim Murren said in part, quote, "Our goal has always been to resolve these matters so our community and the victims and their families can move forward in the healing process." It's expected that the claimants will receive the compensation by the end of next year. Orko Manor, 8 News Now.
There are still few cases in federal court in California, but Eglett says they're working to consolidate those cases into the settlement. Now, we're just more than 1 year away from the 2020 election and just a few months away from our First in the West caucus. The top 10 Democratic presidential candidates were in Las Vegas on Wednesday for a gun safety forum. The event was hosted by gun control advocacy groups Giffords and March for Our Lives. The hardworking Orko Manor was there as well. He filed this report.
The top Democratic candidates for president reiterated their plans to stop gun violence here at Wednesday's Gun Safety Forum. This is an important issue for many Nevadans, with this week marking 2 years since the 1 October mass shooting. The Gun Safety Forum began with a moment of silence for the 58 victims of 1 October before candidates took to the stage. Many are calling for universal background checks and an assault weapons ban.
We think of this like the public health emergency that it is. I think that's powerfully important. People are dying.
One of the top contenders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, said she plans to reduce U.S. gun deaths by 80% over 8 years.
That's known as 2 terms for a president.
Another frontrunner, former Vice President Joe Biden, touted his experience.
I'm the only guy that's ever beaten the NRA nationally, and I beat him twice. The only reason why it's going to change now is because of you. This has gone from a cause to a movement.
While the candidates have different opinions regarding gun licensing and buyback programs, they all agree gun violence needs to be addressed now.
The politicians that do something about gun violence are the ones that are going to be able to get reelected, and the ones that ignore that call are going to have a rude awakening in November of 2020.
The candidates also discussed their plans to tackle urban gun violence and suicide. Reporting in Las Vegas, Orko Manna, 8 News Now.
Well, the candidates also attended plenty of other campaign events while they were here in town for that forum. Senator Kamala Harris spoke to first responders who worked on 1 October, as well as the nurses union, during an event at UMC on Wednesday. Gun violence was still the main topic.
I frankly think if more people understood the impact of gun violence on real human beings the way you do, perhaps we could take this out of a political discussion.
Harris also held a, quote, dude gotta go, unquote, rally at the East Las Vegas Community Center. And Cory Booker met with students after the forum for a conversation about gun violence, but he also touched on child poverty and says he's releasing a new plan to deal with that issue.
A lot of times there's what we call these cliffs, that as soon as you make a certain amount of money, you suddenly lose all these benefits. It's as if the incentive is not to make that money, right? And this is outrageous.
Booker's mom lives here in Nevada, so he has been one of the most frequent campaigners here during this election cycle. Well, Senator Bernie Sanders was in town to attend the gun forum, but instead he ended up recovering from an emergency operation at Desert Springs Hospital. As Kristen Drummond reports, the presidential candidate underwent a heart procedure after experiencing chest pain at a private fundraiser at the Shiraz restaurant on Decatur in Sahara.
He gave a great talk. I've heard him speak a number of times before.
Byron Giorgio recalling his experience at the Sanders event. He recorded this video of the Vermont senator criticizing President Donald Trump.
A president who clearly does not understand the Constitution of the United States.
Moments later, Sanders answers a few audience questions, but for many familiar with his mannerisms, the presidential candidate made a strange request to sit in a chair.
Which would be highly unusual for him because he's usually extremely energetic and so forth.
Sanders experienced chest discomfort according to a campaign statement. It says in part, following medical evaluation and testing, he was found to have a blockage in one artery and 2 stents were successfully inserted.
And hopefully he'll recover from this well enough to continue to be competitive in the race.
Sanders' team canceled all events and appearances until further notice. Despite the medical procedure, Giorgio doesn't question Sanders' ability to continue stumping while seeking the nation's highest office.
It doesn't change my opinion about him. Everybody has stents.
The campaign adds Sanders is in good spirits and plans to rest the next few days. At age 78, Sanders is the oldest 2020 primary candidate in the race. In Las Vegas, Kristen Drummond, 8 News Now.
So what does all that mean for the campaign trail? CBS reporter Kara Cordy has been following the Sanders campaign. Good Day Las Vegas anchor John Langler talked to her about what this means for Sanders' presidential bid going forward.
He had a busy schedule today and then after being in Las Vegas as well. What was on his slate for today?
That's right. He had 3 different campaign events scheduled today in and around Las Vegas. Those were all canceled this morning. Tomorrow he was headed to the Los Angeles area for 4 events there, and from there he was going on to Iowa, and that just symbols is a symbol for the kind of campaign Bernie Sanders runs. Just last week we went in 6 days to 7 different states across the Midwest, and that was the kind of schedule that he was planning on having today in Nevada.
So he's a busy man, to be sure, running for president, but we were talking a little bit before as well about a bit of his health history, perhaps leading up to what brought him to the hospital last night.
That's right. So he, in 2016 when he was running, his doctor released his medical records and gave him a full bill of health saying that he was very healthy. Then he was a 74-year-old man. Now he is 78. And the senator often jokes on the campaign. He calls himself a young man, or if he's addressing a group of college students, he'll say, you know, young people like you and me. So he is very much aware that he is the oldest candidate running for president. But he will always say that he is in good health.
And Sanders' campaign manager says he'll participate in the next presidential debate that's scheduled for October 15th.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
The chief officer for the Southern Nevada Health District is stepping down after what he called a tumultuous 6 years. Dr. Joseph Iser announced his retirement on Thursday, 8 months before his contract expires. This comes 1 week after the I-Team reported on alleged attempts by Iser to cover up serious whistleblower complaints within the district. For the past few years, district employees have complained to the health board and to the I-Team about Iser's frequent absences and his heavy-handed management style. The Board of Health has generally been supportive of Iser's work. One of the few to openly criticize him is former Clark County Commissioner Chris June Kiliani, who thought Iser should have been fired as far back as 2017.
It's very dysfunctional again. It's not a healthy district, and that's unfortunate because the work that they do, public health, is so key to our constituents here, and with the volume of visitors that we have as well that come into play.
Employee morale was so low that the district stopped taking surveys of its own workers after 2015. Dr. Iser, who earns $325,000 a year in salary and benefits, says he plans to travel and spend time with his family. His last official day will be January 3rd, but as of tomorrow, he'll be on paid leave for the rest of the year. Well, a plea deal for a billionaire and his co-defendant is causing controversy. 8 News Now was the only local TV station to have a camera in court this week, and the I-Team's Vanessa Murphy was there. She's here to tell us about the plea deal. Vanessa?
Steve, there will be no jail time for billionaire Henry Nicholas and his friend Ashley Fargo. Instead, they've made a $1 million donation to charitable organizations, and they have to complete drug counseling, community service, and stay out of trouble.
The 2 felony counts of possession of controlled substance will be dismissed.
Henry Nicholas takes a deep breath after his plea deal is accepted Wednesday. If the billionaire and his co-defendant Ashley Fargo follow conditions worked out with the Clark County District Attorney and their defense team, their felony drug possession charges are dropped. In 2018, Metro Police say they found more than 93 grams of MDMA or ecstasy, along with heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine, and mushrooms in the couple's Encore hotel room. They were arrested for drug trafficking.
Obviously, a judge can choose not to follow a negotiation, but a judge can't choose not to accept a guilty plea.
Judge Jacqueline Bluth signed off on the deal after asking for an explanation. Prosecutor Brad Turner says it may have been difficult to prove the drugs were theirs. Defense attorney David Chesnoff points to a lack of forensic evidence like fingerprints. And without admitting guilt through an Alford plea, Nicholas and Fargo are also maintaining their innocence.
Is this deal fair?
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about the penalties that someone who maintained his innocence was facing, a decision like this where he winds up with a dismissal and does good for the community is a perfect solution.
Nicholas is a co-founder of Broadcom. He was arrested on federal drug charges in 2008. Those were dropped too. He's the driving force of Marsy's Law, a push for constitutional rights for crime victims. It passed in Nevada with the support of District Attorney Steve Wolfson. Chesnoff says last week, a total of $1 million was donated to Boys and Girls Club of Southern Nevada and organizations dedicated to drug treatment, Pact Coalition and Foundation for Recovery.
The problem is not that this person got the kind of deal that they got. It is that others are not given the same kind of deal.
Robert Langford is a defense attorney not tied to this case, but watching closely. He points to counseling, not prison time.
Will you be proposing a deal like this for your clients?
Absolutely. Very next case I have like this, I'm going to do the same thing.
And Steve, if Nicholas and Fargo don't stay out of trouble, they could face a 1 to 4 year sentence.
Thanks, Vanessa.
You're watching Politics Now.
President Trump is calling on another country to investigate the Bidens, even as he faces an impeachment inquiry for allegedly doing the same thing with Ukraine. CBS News' Nicole Killen is on Capitol Hill, where a former U.S. diplomat spoke to lawmakers about the president's controversial call.
That's why they do the impeachment crap, because they know they can't beat us fairly.
President Trump took more swipes at Democrats, including rival Joe Biden, after calling on Ukraine and now China to investigate the former vice president and his son.
China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine.
Joe Biden's campaign erupted with this statement. What Donald Trump just said on the South Lawn of the White House was this election's equivalent of his infamous Russia, if you're listening moment from 2016.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
The president's latest comment seeking foreign help also drew a stern rebuke from congressional Democrats as they move forward with their impeachment inquiry.
He feels he can do anything with impunity.
Former special envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Volker, who resigned last week and helped arrange meetings between Ukrainian officials and the president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, testified behind closed doors Thursday.
Not one thing he has said comports with any of the Democrats' impeachment narrative. Not one thing.
The House's top Republican, Kevin McCarthy, wrote a letter to Speaker Nancy Pelosi asking her to suspend all efforts surrounding your impeachment inquiry. President Trump backed McCarthy on Twitter, writing, "The do-nothing Democrats don't stand a chance." Nicole Killian, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
And separate from the impeachment investigation is an investigation being run by Nevada Congresswoman Dina Titus. A House subcommittee headed by Titus is looking into whether the president violated the emoluments clause of the Constitution. That prevents him from profiting illegally by having foreign leaders staying at his Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. Titus said the phone call with the Ukrainian leader revealed more evidence of foreign leaders trying to curry favor with President Trump by buying rooms.
You're watching Politics Now.
Well, as we near the 2020 election, you can expect to see the number of political ads start to ramp up. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden is buying at least $6 million worth of TV ads in Nevada and the other 3 early states. In addition to regular TV, the ads will be on streaming services like Hulu and YouTube. Another of the top Democrats, that's Elizabeth Warren, also reserved more than $1.2 million worth of ads here in Nevada. Those run from January 27th until our First in the West caucus, that's on February 22nd. And the latest CNN poll had Biden and Bernie Sanders neck and neck in Nevada, with Elizabeth Warren right behind. The Silver State is no stranger to being flooded with political ads. In 2018, the Senate race between Dean Heller and Jackie Rosen had the 4th most money spent of any race for Congress. The campaign spending on all races in Las Vegas in 2018 topped the country. And in the 2012 presidential election, Las Vegas set the record for most ads that aired in a single city during an election. Well, campaign walk-up songs are becoming as much a part of the 2020 political landscape as the rally speech. Kelly Meyer with our Washington, D.C. bureau talks with some experts who break down the Democratic hopefuls playlist and what they say about the candidates.
Music can change a campaign rally from this to this. All with a little help from John Lennon's Power to the People. It's a tactic that's been used by politicians for generations.
It goes back really to the 1840s, the writing of original campaign songs.
Lauren Kajikawa studies the musical soundtrack for candidates throughout history here at George Washington University in D.C. Memorable jingles like these help lead candidate after candidate into the White House. But as Americans' music tastes changed, so did the campaign soundtrack.
I think political strategists started to realize that they could rely on existing popular music that would embody some of the values.
Now artists like Tom Petty to Stevie Wonder get featured by candidates hoping to form an emotional bond with their voters.
From Elizabeth Warren using Dolly Parton's hit 9 to 5 to Beto O'Rourke's love for punk rock, 2020 Democratic candidates' playlists are unique as ever.
it's kind of an index of identity.
Kachikawa says the one thing that hasn't changed over the years is the strategy behind it all.
Former Vice President Biden, his playlist is evenly split between black and white artists, and Kamala Harris's playlist is much more, it's the most, I think, African-American artist of any of the other candidates in the field right now.
Music remains an unwavering part of the American campaign, and that tune isn't changing anytime soon. Reporting in Washington, I'm Kelly Meyer.
Well, and what to watch next week, Democratic presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren will be back in Las Vegas next weekend. She'll be marching in the Las Vegas Pride Parade with a guest from a fundraiser. We may see other candidates head down here for Pride festivities next weekend as well. Well, that's our show for this week. Thanks for watching Politics Now. If you have questions about politics or suggestions for something we should cover on the show, feel free to email me, Sebelius@8newsnow.com. You can also check out our interviews with candidates for various offices on our website at 8newsnow.com. Watch us right here every Saturday. Sasha Lasses has your local news next.